In 2001, we fell in love with a platformer, a bright, vibrant adventure inspired by the best of Banjo-Kazooie and Mario. It was a game about two friends, a magical world, and the joy of discovery. But 2 years later, Naughty Dog ripped open a portal and pulled us into a nightmare. They took our platforming hero, gave him a voice full of rage, a gun in his hands, and threw him into a sprawling, oppressive city ruled by a tyrant. This wasn't just a sequel. This was a revolution. This was Jak 2. Widely regarded as one of the boldest genre shifts in gaming history, Jak 2 dared to be different. It blended open-world exploration with intense combat, challenging platforming, and a mature, convoluted story that seemed to defy its own cutesy heritage. But was it an act of creative genius or a misguided attempt at coolness? How did a game so punishingly difficult manage to become a beloved PlayStation 2 classic? To understand Jak 2, you have to understand the time it was made. It's 2003, and the PlayStation 2 is king. Open-world games like Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City have completely changed the landscape, and Naughty Dog felt the pressure to evolve. According to developers at the time, there was a desire to make a game that was cooler, a game that could compete with the edgier aesthetics and more complex narratives that were becoming popular. The development team decided to abandon the lighthearted tone of the first game, a decision that stemmed from their own desire to push creative boundaries. They kept the core duo, but the universe was reimagined from the ground up. This was a massive undertaking, requiring them to build a new engine and design an entire open-world city, a far cry from the linear levels of the first game. The most shocking change, Jak, who was silent in the first game, was now voiced by actor Mike Irwin. His first words in the game, a furious, grunted cry for revenge, perfectly set the stage for this new, dark chapter. I don't remember that much when I was a kid when I first played this game. I mean, in terms of like my honest reaction, my initial reaction to the giant shift from Jak 1 to Jak 2. I do remember vividly in the box art, in the logo, in the Jak 2 logo, because the 2 was Roman numeral, has like two eyes basically, or one eye with two stems, whatever. They put Jak's face along with Dark Jak. And when I first saw that, I was so confused as to who the fuck was the other person. I recognized Jak, but the other one had no idea, and for the longest time, I literally just could not figure out who it was. And then, I can't remember exactly when, but a few years later or whatever, that's when I realized that it was Jak himself. But it was Dark Jak, Dark Evil Jak, that they introduced in the second game. Now, the first game wasn't that linear. It was, like I said in my previous video, it was semi-open world. It was linear, like the game guided you where to go, but it wasn't like, Crash or, something like fucking, like Resident Evil or something. But Jak 2 definitely took that semi-open world from the first game, made it completely open world with a mini-map, mission markers, anywhere you can possibly want to explore. With limitations, you have to unlock the areas, but you can still do whatever the fuck you wanted. If you had 3 missions available, you can do one or the other, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter which order you did because the game was open world. And like I mentioned before, GTA was starting to, begin its rise in the gaming community, and everyone wanted to do it. Everyone wanted to do open world. So you can honestly argue or say that Jak 2 is GTA for kids. Like, there is some violence. I mean, it's rated T for teens, ooh, edgy. And it did have guns, it had a violence. They cussed a little bit. I mean, the only cussing they did was say ass, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it was basically GTA Junior. And honestly, it's not that bad. Like, the charm of the first one did kind of disappear. Like the magical, imaginative fantasy aspect did disappear, but the sci-fi dystopian future, it worked well for Jak, not gonna lie. And speaking of the dystopian future, the true protagonist of Jak 2 is not Jak, but the city itself. Haven City is a character, a sprawling, oppressive metropolis where danger lurks around every corner. This was Naughty Dog's first foray into an open-world hub, and they built a vertical, intricate, and densely populated urban center that felt genuinely alive. The city is a constant antagonist, with armed Crimson Guards patrolling every street and airspace. And in case you didn't know, Crimson Guards are basically, they're like cops slash soldiers for the Baron Praxis. And their commander, their general, captain, whatever, I actually don't know what the fuck he is. Anyway, the guy who leads them, his name is Errol. So yeah, the Crimson Guards are basically your brutal police brutality, government overreach type of fucking guards slash policemen. Instead of trying to arrest you when you like quote unquote commit a crime as Jack, they just try to instantly kill you. So it's very realistic. I won't get into that. Anyway, yeah, so the Crimson Guards, they're obviously red, the name Crimson. They do have an upgraded armor. They become yellow, like the armor is yellow once you progress throughout the story. And the only difference between the yellow and the red armor is that the yellow has more health. I don't think they do more damage, but they take an extra hit or two to kill. The city itself is, in hindsight, it's not as big as you'd think. But as a kid, it did feel pretty big. I mean, it is bigger compared to Jak 1, because, the level there was kind of segmented into 3 parts. But here, the entire world is just one giant city. Well, relatively giant. And I like the thing that I liked about the city, the way they designed it, is each city had like its own, I guess, like district or province. I don't know what to call them. Basically, you would have like a certain area be like a water type of town with houses on sticks, and then you had like the main town, the main city, where it's kind of like an urban environment, like a bunch of apartments, and then you had like another urban area which was kind of like their version of like Beverly Hills. What I mean by that, it was the buildings were much nicer. They weren't as crooked, as run down or old. The city, like the actual street was very nice. I think that was my favorite part of the city, is that kind of like that rich, much nicer looking area. There's also a farm hub area, I guess, where they have like these like alien vegetables. I don't know what to call them, like their world version of vegetables. They had like a bazaar, like a shopping district, a farmer's market type of place. And yeah, there were so many things to explore, especially when you do a mission. You'll go in, for example, one of the main missions you always do is go into the sewers. And every time you go back into the sewer, depending on the mission, you always go a different route. And yeah, it's still the same location of the sewers, but you're exploring a different part of it that you didn't get to explore earlier in the game when you previously went into the sewers. So going back to the city's design tells a story of a society under siege. The upper echelons of the city are clean and controlled, while the slums and industrial districts are gritty and chaotic. The visual language of a class struggle and totalitarian rule creates a palpable sense of tension. The hover vehicle traffic, the eco-powered energy grid, and the constant threat of metalheads breaching the walls all contribute to a meticulously crafted world that feels both futuristic and deeply lived in. Simply, getting from one side of the city to another was an adventure in itself, forcing players to master the art of evasion and traversal. And like I mentioned before, the city is split into districts, or, think of LA, right? You have Culver City, you have Santa Monica, you have Beverly Hills, you have the Valley, you have fucking Century City, right? It's kind of like that. The entire city has its own little mini cities or little districts, and you can tell which one's the rich area, which is the poor area, which one is the way it is. The fascist aspect of it, or the totalitarian aspect of it, the Baron, he took power by force. He's not actually the rightful ruler of Haven City. Spoilers, I guess. And you can always hear his voice in the comms and the speaker, like a PA system, telling his citizens, like, don't be afraid, I'm here to protect you, blah blah blah, all that fucking dictator shit. The shift to an open world demanded a complete overhaul of Jack's moveset, and Naughty Dog delivered in spades. Gone were the days of simple spin attacks and jumping puzzles. Now Jack had a fucking gun. And not just any gun. The Morph Gun was the Swiss Army knife of destruction with 4 distinct modes that each felt powerful and unique. And, you know, when I was doing my research and writing the script for this, I had no idea. I've been playing this game for fucking 20 plus years. I had no idea it was called the Morph Gun. I don't think they've actually set the name in game, if I'm being quite honest. Also, like, to be fair, when I first started playing the game as a kid, I did play it in Spanish. I mean, side note, when I was a kid, I did watch a lot of movies Spanish dub, and I played a lot of games Spanish dub when they were offered. I don't know why. I do know why. My parents only spoke Spanish, right? So they also wanted to watch the movies or whatever. But also, you know, I don't know. I just played games in Spanish. Fuck it, sue me. So there are a lot of things that I actually discovered when replaying the games, you know, as I got older and older. When I'm playing it in English, because at this point I don't really care what language they're in. And I don't know. It seems a bit different playing a different game when I played in English compared to Spanish. Anyway, the gun itself, the Morph Gun. The Morph Gun, as it is apparently called, is a gun that has 4 sets, or 4 modes, rather. You have... Oh, another thing is that the ammo uses eco, right? If you don't know what eco is like the powers, and like the source of energy power-ups basically in the Jack universe. In the first game, they were like really prevalent. In this game, it's only the green one and dark eco. Green is health, dark eco kills you, and the other ecos kind of like got left behind. Except they got repurposed as ammo for the gun. So you had red eco, which was used for, or red ammo, I guess, was used for the scatter gun, aka the shotgun, the very first gun you get in the game. And then you get an upgrade for the yellow eco, or yellow ammo, and that became like it became like a blaster, a single shot blaster. And then after that, you get the blue eco / blue ammo, which was basically an LMG or a minigun type of weapon. The sound design and the way the visuals of the bullets look, it actually looks like physical real life bullets compared to the other two, which is kind of cool, I guess. And then the last one that you get is the Peacemaker, or that's what Sig called his version, or his Peacemaker. And basically what this is, it's purple eco, or technically blue eco, because it shoots an electric ball, right? So the silhouette of the gun, when you have it equipped in your HUD, it's purple, but the actual shot is a blue ball of electricity. So kind of confused there, because all the other silhouettes match the color of the ammo type except for this one. It's a purple silhouette with purple ammo, purple eco, I'm assuming. It shoots a blue. So I think it's like blue eco, but because, you know, in the first game, blue eco was kind of electricity because it made you run faster, and it opened doors and stuff. So it's a bit weird, but we move on. One of my biggest critiques about having the open world, though, going back to his moveset, is that you have to drive. You know, you can't just walk from point A to point B. You have to fucking drive, dude. Like, Jack moves so slow. Painfully slow, right? And the world is, again, it's relatively big. So you have to fucking steal a car, or hotwire a car, and by hotwire means leader, just get on it and drive. Okay, going back to the gun real quick. I might be in the minority when I say this, might be a hot take, might be a controversial take. I don't really like the shooting mechanic in this game. Now, it's not terrible, like it's not ass, but it is difficult to use. What I mean is, there is no strafing, there is no aiming. You kind of have to guide Jack to look a certain direction, and then there is some auto aim, and that auto aim does help you automatically shoot at your target, but you still have to kind of move Jack either forward, left, or right to hit what you're trying to shoot at. And that's something that It's not hard to master, but it's just like hella inconvenient, or kind of, I'm gonna be straight up, kind of fucking dumb. Like Ratchet and Clank did it right with the first game. The first game you couldn't really aim. I mean, you could aim in first person, but you're like stationary and completely fucking vulnerable, right? It wasn't until the second game where they added strafing and you can actually just aim and shoot. Jak 2 came out around the same time as Ratchet and Clank, so I don't know why they didn't implement a strafing or some kind of actual aiming mechanic instead of just, oh, good luck, hopefully I hit something type of thing, you know? But besides that, the gunplay was refined, you know, for the developers. The addition of auto aim, like I said, helped keep the action fast-paced and fluid, but mastery came from knowing which weapons to use in a given situation. But the combat went from beyond guns. The hoverboard wasn't just a fun toy, it was a core gameplay mechanic, essential for navigating certain platforms, grinding on rails, and even platforming tricks and evasive maneuvers in combat. It added a layer of speed and style that felt totally unique to the game. See, now the hoverboard, now that we're talking about the hoverboard, that was a cool addition to the game. You don't really use it on the streets. I mean, you can, but to get somewhere faster, but it is a bit, it's faster than running, but it's slower than driving a car. And okay, it is I did say it was a mechanic, right? It is a mechanic, because some missions do require you to use the fucking hoverboard. Like, there are some areas you get to, like, grind on rails to get from one platform to another. You had to race time to, like, not die, or, like, whatever. So, it was a mechanic, but I feel like it was a bit unnecessary. It is cool, but it was the early 2000s, so, you know, skateboarding, Tony Hawk, that was, like, so fucking popular, so they just added it just for the fuck of it. But again, it is cool. It's not like a terrible gimmick. It's not a terrible mechanic, because it is actually useful, right? Like, it's not like completely useful as a gun, I guess, but you know, if it wasn't there, it might have deterred the game a little bit. But overall, TLDR, I'm just, you know, talking too much. It was a good addition in my opinion. And now we're gonna talk about the main change to Jak. His Dark Eco variant or version, Dark Jak. You know, spoilers. He gets captured at the very beginning of the game, and they infuse him with Dark Eco. Oh, I'll talk about the story later, by the way. I'm sidetracked. I'll talk about the story later. The story is a bit like, what the fuck? We'll get to there. We'll talk about Dark Jak first. Fueled by Dark Eco experiments he endured in prison, the transformation turned Jak into an unstoppable force for a short time. This wasn't just a power-up, it was a physical manifestation of his near inner rage. Its use was a strategic choice. While Dark Jak could decimate enemies, it also had to be managed, adding a new layer of resource management to the core gameplay loop. This blend of fluid movement, tight gunplay, and strategic power-ups created a gameplay experience that was unlike anything else on the market. So, power-ups is basically just Dark Jak, right? And the thing you manage is your Dark Jak meter. When you defeat enemies, primarily metalheads, some random-ass animals in the beginning of the game when you couldn't have guns, so the metalheads were easier, and they also added random animals. Anyway, you grab these Dark Eco pellets, pills, or some shit. I don't know what the fuck you call them. You just picked up Dark Eco, and that filled your Dark Eco meter. And once it was filled, you can essentially, I think it's R2 or L2, and you transform it to Dark Jak. Now, Dark Jak is basically a melee champion. Oh my god, it's not League of Legends. He's a melee character, and he does a lot of damage. His punches become like you're like clawing at people. His kick is still a kick, and that's pretty much it. I think your punches are like one shot now. That's basically, because before the punches took like 2, maybe 3 hits, but with Dark Jak it's an instant kill. And when you progress through the game, when you kill metalheads, they drop this yellow goldish pill called a metalhead skull. And basically what that is you collect enough and you go to a precursor statue and you trade the skull gems. Skull gems, they're called skull gems. You'll trade a skull gem and he'll give you powers. There's one, you hit X and square, he does like a bomb. You hit square and jump, and then it's like he does like a spin attack, and the animation is cool. The damage output is exactly the same for both. One's just a bomb and one is a spinning attack with electricity. There might be another one, not entirely sure, but the power-ups that you get, the upgrades I guess you get for Dark Jack, they're cool. They help you get rid of giant waves of enemies. The only downside of using the power-up or your power is once you use it, Dark Jack is over. You have to refill your meter again. If you don't use a power-up, you can continue using Jack until it runs out. I don't remember the exact time, but it'll eventually run out. The story of Jak 2 was a huge step up in complexity. It was a sprawling tale of time travel, political conspiracy, and revenge. The narrative was paced properly, with new characters and plot twists around every corner. Characters like the mysterious and charismatic leader of the underground, Torn, and the city's enigmatic spy, Ashley, were more than just side characters. They had their own complex roles in the city's power struggles. The dialogue was sharp, the voice acting was excellent, and the story felt genuinely mature, a far cry from the lighthearted antics of the first game. And at the time, the game was a bit difficult. You might argue sadistic. Jak 2 is legendary for its steep learning curve and punishing checkpoints. The game had moments of sheer frustration where missions demanded pixel-perfect precision or an insane amount of trial and error. The on-rails missions and escort quests and the brutal boss fights felt designed to test the limits of your patience. The difficulty became a defining feature of the game, a badge of honor for those who persevered, and a source of endless debate for those who gave up. It was a clear sign that Naughty Dog was making a game for themselves, pushing their own design philosophies and expecting players to rise to the challenge. Now going back to the story a little bit, the story was, it was paced well. Like, it didn't feel rushed, it didn't feel slow, it didn't feel fast and slow. It was good. The only critique, or a few critiques I have about the story, is it kind of just starts. There's no build up. There's no beginning, I guess. So in the beginning of the game, you're in Jak 1 world, right? Young Jak, and you're in Sandover Village, and then you go through this portal. You go through a portal, you land in Haven City, and then 2 years later, Jak has a beard. He's Dark Jak, and Daxter finally released him. Those 2 years, it's the Daxter game to take place. That's a different thing. And that's pretty much it, right? When we land in Haven City, Jak gets arrested. I don't know why. He just gets arrested. Like, Errol and his goons come and Jak's arrested. Why? I don't fucking know. Maybe they know something we don't, but they just arrested him. And that's it. Because, spoiler warning, the game Haven City does take place in the future, and in that future, Jak is a kid, right? The little kid, the main thing we're protecting, the kid, that's young Jak. You learn that at the end of the game, and young Jak gets taken by young Samos to the past in Sandover Village, starting the adventures of Jak 1. So maybe Errol arrested Jak in the beginning because they knew he was Mar, or the little kid, but no one knew that Jak was the little kid. So why the fuck did they arrest him, right? And then when we meet Torn and join the underground, they act like they've been friends forever, or like they introduce themselves like, hey, who are you? I don't trust you, whatever. Prove yourself. And like, okay, so we met Torn and now we're part of the underground, cool. But how the fuck does Jak know the Shadow? The Shadow is basically young Samos. Did he learn about it? Learn about him during in prison? But because there's no way, because out of nowhere, I want to meet the Shadow. But like, how the fuck do we know who the Shadow is? How did you know that the Shadow existed? Right? Like, there are some things about the story that just that don't make any sense. But But the story itself is cohesive. Like, the story makes sense. Like, it's not a bad story. It's just some things are like, how, why, type of thing. But it doesn't ruin the actual story or gameplay of the game. That's the only good thing. Jak 2 was a marvel on the PS2. The shift in art direction was bold, trading in bright fantasy for a gritty cyberpunk aesthetic. The in-game models were more detailed, the animations were fluid, and the seamless transition from cutscene to gameplay was a technical triumph. The sound design was equally brilliant, with a score that was a perfect blend of industrial rock and orchestral action. Sound effects that made every gunshot and explosion feel powerful. In retrospect, Jak 2 is a vital piece of gaming history. It's the game that showed Naughty Dog was capable of more than just a light-hearted platform. The tonal shift, the complex storytelling, and the focus on the character-driven narrative all are seeds that would later blossom into their future hits like Uncharted and The Last of Us. The risk they took with Jak's transformation from a silent hero to complex, rage-fluid protagonist laid the groundwork for their modern storytelling sensibilities. For all its frustrating difficulty, Jak 2 remains a masterclass in creative ambition. It was a game that dared to break the mold, to grow up with the audience, and infuse genres in a way that had never been done before. It's a brutal, beautiful, and utterly unforgettable adventure that stands as a testament to Naughty Dog's audacious vision and their willingness to reinvent themselves. It's a classic that proves that sometimes the greatest treasures aren't just found in a magical world, but in a city full of darkness and danger. The Jak trilogy, and I guess including Jak X and Daxter, I didn't play Lost Frontier, I'm too scared to play that. They have always been a staple part of my life, especially as a kid, growing up playing them on the PS2. And, you know, replaying them always makes me sad because Naughty Dog and Sony abandoned Jak. We haven't seen Jak in over 20 years. Sly Cooper kind of came back, you know, with Thieves in Time. And Ratchet & Clank is the only survivor of the OG, you know, the OG crew from the PS2 days. So it is a bit sad for me that this franchise was abandoned by Sony and Naughty Dog. And I get it, right? Naughty Dog wanted to, you know, do other shit, and for some reason Sony just doesn't give the IP to a studio to make another game, but whatever. Anyway, this video is already too long. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy. What are your most frustrating memorable missions in Jak 2? Because there are a lot of frustrating missions in the game. Don't even get me started. There are some things I'm like, I dreaded doing. Even to this day, I'm like, this mission's so ass. Did you love the darker tone, or did you prefer the original? I honestly don't mind either. I like the lighter, more brightful platformer of the first one, and I enjoy the darker, grittier, more grown-up of Jak 2. But yeah, like and subscribe, share the video, comment down below, and thanks for watching. Bye.